Hey, Peterson, look, down here. I found the head.
Besides these clips of my earlier horror films, I thought you might want to know there are 3 other versions of the film Minds of Terror. Originally, I wrote, shot, and edited my 2 segments for Minds of Terror and gave Chris Watson these 2 separate tapes that had no music or titles. Chris made the other 2 segments starring Eric Spudic and Conrad Brooks, and then edited all 4 segments together and adding his own music and titles. I had nothing to do with those 2 short segments and no control over the final editing of Minds of Terror. Because of this, I wanted to make my own version of the film, to show to family and friends, to enter into film festivals, and just to have as an example of my true vision of what the film should be. My version is called Lost Souls, and there are some major differences between it and Minds of Terror. The first changes you may notice are not only the new titles, but completely different music. After the opening credits, you'll also see that Lost Souls begins with the farm segment and not the Stone Ridge story. I did this for 2 reasons. First of all, I felt like the farm segment worked better in the beginning because you don't know that Randy Allen's character is Van Doren at this point. He's just a guy with amnesia, and so the question of which character is the killer is left unanswered until the end of the segment. Secondly, I felt the boiler room scene, or as some people call it, the torture scene, was one of the best and most intense scenes in Minds of Terror. But in the middle of this scene, the viewer suddenly watches a 20-minute subplot about Van Doren on a farm, and then come back to finish the scene in the boiler room. I thought this was too much of a break in the action, so I moved the farm segment to the beginning of Lost Souls. Since I moved the farm segment to the beginning of Lost Souls, I still needed a flashback sequence during the boiler room scene, a quick montage to remind the viewer what happened earlier.
I ended up in Kansas City and in a bad car accident. With no memory of my identity, I ended up at a strange farm.
This is a place of lost souls and evil thoughts. Evil attracts evil. There's been many murders here. I tried to stop it, but they're too powerful.
I felt like I left my soul back there.
Lost Souls and Evil Thoughts is the farm segment as a 20-minute short film. I actually edited this version before I shot the Stone Ridge segment 6 months later. Other than the new music and credits, it is exactly the same as it appears in Minds of Terror. In some ways, it works well as its own short film in that Randy Allen's character is never identified as Van Doren and has no backstory involving the mental health facility. At the end of the film, he simply walks away to continue his killing spree, possibly in your town. The ending credits are shown over shots of the Batmer farm. I took the Stone Ridge segment and made it its own short horror film called, appropriately, Stone Ridge. Now, it's interesting to note the opening credits to Stone Ridge are what I originally wanted to use for both Minds of Terror and Lost Souls.
Maybe under the stairs, maybe in the dark corner. Your parents told you there were no monsters, but you knew they were there. You had seen them. They spoke to you. You tried to ignore them, but they wouldn't leave you alone. And now, you're about to discover what they want from you.
The other major change comes at the end of the boiler room scene. As you might recall, the image of Van Doren from the farm segment appears to himself as he prepares to kill Carla in both Minds of Terror and Lost Souls. To me, this was part of Van Doren's soul that was trapped by the evil and that could never leave the farm. But since the farm segment was not part of the short film Stone Ridge, this wouldn't make any sense. So I had shot an alternate version where the ghost of Bobby appears to Van Doren in order to save his sister Carla.
No!
Monsters have been waiting for you. They knew you would come. You can't escape. This is your hell.
You don't understand. This is your hell, not hers. You created your own hell with the path you took. Your fear is the key that opens hell's gates. Now it's time to walk through them.
Well, there you have it. Several different films and videos that hopefully enhance your enjoyment of Minds of Terror. Now you know it began in 1983 with The Unknown Horror and 1995 with Death Grip, and continues with new visions like Lost Souls and Stone Ridge. Who knows what may be next?